I'm Rebecca Gjostein, and this is the second half of VIP parenting. I just want to note that I do not have a copy of the Changes in Child's Parent Handbook with me to refer to. Okay, so Vincent Wolf just finished up the first part of VIP, and here we go. Now let's turn in your parent booklet to page 18, to the TLCs of parenting. You may be saying to yourself, it's easy for you to stand up there and tell me to change, but how do I do that? You probably figured out by now that Family Honor's goal is to help parents, help them grow even more in competence and confidence, more than you already are, so that you can raise healthy, happy, and holy children. Are we as presenters perfect parents? No, not at all. We're all learning, and we all want to help you to be the best parents that you can be. As Matthew Kelly says, be the best versions of yourself. Have you ever wondered, am I really that important in the life of my child? They seem to be kind of, in their teenage years, kind of going into their own little cave and leaving you behind, or maybe they're arguing with everything that you say, or maybe they're just completely focused on the world outside of their family, with their friends. Well, I want you to be encouraged by the secular research that we just told you about, but even more, take heart that it's all part of God's plan. It's all part of the big picture. Some of the strategies that we want to share with you are the TLCs of parenting, the tender, loving changes. So this means shifting from teaching and talking to listening and learning. Also shifting from controlling to co-piloting, and shifting from spending time with your children to spending more time with your kids. Turn to page 19 in your booklet. What does it mean to shift from teaching and talking to listening and learning? When your child was younger, didn't you do a lot of talking, lecturing and teaching, maybe even ranting, raving, and nagging? Oh boy, I know what that's like right now. My children are 7, almost 4, and 2, and sometimes I feel like I'm telling them something multiple times till I'm blue in the face and they still forget. Well, what happens with teenagers? Sometimes they tune us out, sometimes they start to rant and rave back, or maybe they even resent or reject our lectures and our nagging. In the Epistle of James, it says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. So instead of always justifying your own ideas, you want to try to switch gears a little bit and try to find out what your son or daughter's ideas and thoughts, feelings, and developing values might be. Even though we have a lot of wisdom to give to them, listening to how they are making sense of their experiences will help us to understand better, have a better understanding, and be able to empathize better with them and their feelings. And then we'll be in a better position to offer some guidance, and our child might be more likely to listen to what we have to say instead of just tuning us out. So by listening and learning, we become a student of our child. I mean, refer to Matthew Kelly again. He's a popular Catholic author. And he always says, enter into the classroom of silence. So by listening, we are learning, we become students of our children. We learn more about them. We learn through their talents and their strengths, and we become more tuned into any early signs of concern or trouble. The first example that comes to my mind here is how many of you had to take that Protecting God's Children training? Some of those videos, you kind of don't want to have to ever go there, have that experience with your children, but understand that they're trying to give you cues, subconscious or consciously, when something's not right. And not only does this apply to the adults in their life, but also with their peers. You know, why when they talk about going out with a group of friends, do they always roll their eyes when they say a certain kid's name? You know, that's your opportunity to say, what's wrong with so-and-so? why do you roll your eyes when you talk to them? That'll open up a chance for maybe them to share something important with you, what's going on in their life. So see if you can finish it. I'd like to have you finish this sentence for me. One way I can become a better listener with my child is, go ahead, just shout it out. So let me give you an example. One way I can become a better listener with my child is to stop what I'm doing when they come in the room and turn to them, maybe even get down to their level and say, "Hi, how you doing?" Sometimes all my 2-year-old wants is just another hug. And with the older kids, they just want to know that I'm really listening to them. Because when I got the water running and I'm doing the dishes and I'm not even looking at them, they don't feel very listened. So okay, so it's your turn. Shout out some answers to this question. One way I can become a better listener with my child is, good. Let's name a few, 2 or 3 of your ideas right now. We'll take a minute to do that. Great, those are excellent ideas. Now let's turn to page 20 in your booklet. Let's talk about controlling to co-piloting. For this example, let's talk about the teen girl who is learning how to drive. Having been a teen girl, I remember that experience. It's a big step for a teen, and mom and dad is usually riding next to them as the co-pilot, coaching them as they become more independent drivers. But it wasn't like that, say, when they were 14 or 13, you were the one in the driver's seat. When they're younger, you're in the driver's seat. Young children need us to be in charge and make decisions for their well-being. They lack the experience to know which path to take or what hazards to avoid. And then as they grow up, they start to learn more about themselves and about the world around them. And we gradually allow them, as they grow, to make more age-appropriate decisions. So it's definitely important to give the right amount of freedom at the right amount of time. You have to know your children, and all of your children are not going to be the same. One could be really responsible at 16, and the other one maybe doesn't even get his driver's license till he's 18. I've seen that happen. So you got to know your child, and the only way to know your child is, again, to become a student of them. So here's my example. When I was a young teen, when I was growing up, maybe a how-to and a how probably not to example. My dad was a very direct person. No matter what you had to say or ask or do or tell him, he always had like a straight out answer. And it wasn't until 9 times out of 10 it was usually no to what you wanted to do. So after about an hour of pleading and explaining and screaming and this and that, and every now and then he might change his mind. But all that really taught us was that we can get our dad to change his mind if we wanted to do something. Sometimes, not all the time. And if we couldn't, we knew better than to ask him first. We'd go ask our mom, which wasn't a very open communication between myself and my dad. My dad was more the hugger than the talker of the family. My mom, on the other hand, was the talker and less of a hugger. But my mom would give a good example when I was driving about, when you got your temps and she's telling you what to do, she'll say, okay, now slow down here, and you're coming up to a stop sign, and watch out for this guy over here. Well, as I grew older, as an older teen, a young adult, she even does it now. She has the mommy door clutch reaction when maybe I'm going too fast, or she thinks I'm not stopping gradually enough, or whatever. So that's kind of her subtle cue to me that maybe my driving isn't very comfortable for her, or doesn't seem, I don't know, maybe I was driving too fast. It's been known to happen. Another example, my mom would, one of her subtle hints as I was a young adult and an adult. And sometimes, depending on what I've eaten for dinner that night, I'd get a little sleepy while I'm driving. She's sitting in the driver's side, and she starts to see me going like this. I always had used to have a can of Altoids, little tins, metal tins, put them into them. she'd get it out of my glove compartment and just hold it in her hand. And if I started to go like this, she'd shake the apple. She'd be like, rattle, rattle, rattle. Eventually I'd get the hint and I'd say, I'd say, hey, do you want to drive? I'm getting sleepy. Or I'd call my sister, in the back seat, hey, can you drive for a little bit? But it was my mom's way of giving me the space as an adult or a young adult to make that decision on my own, but still being there for me and still guiding me to that decision. So as we slowly let go of control, our teens need our guidance. They need our guidance to learn how to make good decisions and how to become more confident. If someone's always telling you, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you're not good at that, you're not good at that, then we are not going to have very much confidence at all. But if we have some subtle guidance along the way to kind of direct us back onto the straight and narrow, then we'll be more confident that we can make those decisions when our parents aren't there. So until our child is an adult, we'll be responsible for his or her well-being. And we'll still make decisions for them, we'll set curfews and hold them accountable. Looking out for their well-being is what a parent does. And not only is looking out for them just being a parent, it's being a loving parent. But eventually, doesn't a loving parent want them to be able to drive on their own? You're not going to be able to sit in the driver's seat everywhere they go when they're off at college or whatever. So here's another finish the sentence thing for you to do. Finish this sentence. One area of responsibility in which I can turn more of the control over to my child is just a few examples, like maybe choosing their own clothing, or decorating their bedroom, or deciding when to do their own homework, provided that you know that they're going to get it done. So take a minute and share some of your answers to finishing the sentence. Here it is again. One area of responsibility in which I can turn more of the control over to my child is. Those are great examples. I appreciate your willingness to share. So now let's turn to page 21 in your book. Let's talk about transitioning from spending time with your child to spending more time with your child. Sometimes we assume that when our children reach adolescence that we can kick back and relax. They can do more for themselves. They have more responsibilities around the house. And maybe even the way that they act by not talking to us or pushing us away, keeping some distance, may even reinforce the idea that pulling back from parenting is the right thing to do at that moment. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. That is the time that they need you. Maybe now more than ever. Teenagers whose parents are connected and involved in their lives do much better in every way. They're happier, they do better in school, and they are more likely to avoid risk-taking behaviors. Teens need our time, and they need our patience, and they need our persistence. They need us to be available for maybe a lunch on a day off, or dinner time for a conversation about what happened that day. A late night snack when something's really bothering them, and they just come down, and maybe they can't just come right out and be like, hey mom, I need to talk, but they're standing in the refrigerator for a while you're sitting at the kitchen table. Maybe that's their cue to you that they might talk to them. Going for walks, that's a great one-on-one time because you don't have the distractions of the chores and the siblings and all that other stuff that goes on in the house. Back rubs, it's another way just to say, hey, I'm here. How can I help you to feel better right now? So their need for physical affection doesn't go away. It just might look a little different. And our new challenge is to find ways to show affection to them in ways that are comfortable to them, but not only them, but comfortable for us. So, for example, here's my silly example. My daughter enjoys a back rub. Nice, calm, relaxing back rub. My son would prefer a back scratch. My husband would prefer a back scratch. I prefer a back rub. Now, you have to know your child because, and you have to know what mood they're in too, because some people just don't want to be touched if they're in a bad mood or if they're upset. Whereas like maybe the day before they were in good mood and they enjoyed that back rub. But also you need to keep it comfortable for yourself and for them. My husband likes a back scratch, like fingernail to skin, and I said, I don't want your skin under my fingernails. Let's use the t-shirt. And that's the only way I'll do it for everybody in the house. And for my daughter, if she likes that nice gentle back rub, but if say you're in a hurry and you're like, okay, come here, hon, and you're rubbing really hard, and she gets like, you have to understand that that's not what she needs at that time. It's not going to make her feel better either. So let's get back into focus here. It's normal that your teens don't want to sit on your lap anymore. My 7-year-old isn't even getting there. But an arm around the shoulder, a hand on the back, a foot rub, if you're into that kind of thing. And definitely hugs. Everybody usually likes a hug, especially from mom or dad. Those things we usually welcome. Again, you have to know your kids and pay attention to their cues. On the other hand, when you're thinking about outside of the house, their peer group, your teen's peer group, can be very critical crowd. And they're going to need lots of affirmation from us as parents and lots of encouragement. Because it's a pretty sarcastic world out there. And they need to know that they're okay. Your kids need to know that they're okay and that they're on the right track. And even when they're not, you need to encourage them to get there. So in order to do that, it's important to find ways that you can stay connected with them. Maybe an activity or a hobby, maybe a sport or a game. And going back to it has to be comfortable for both of you thing. Otherwise, it's just going to be awkward. Like, my husband doesn't like to skate, so he's not likely to take my son skating. I took my son on a Valentine's Day and mom's-son date to the skating rink this past Valentine's Day. For the first time ever, we had the best time. I hadn't been on skates since he was a baby, so that was like 7 years ago. But, I mean, that's going to be something that he and I will probably have fun doing on into his teen years. If we keep up with it. If, he gets the hang of it and doesn't have to use the skate mate anymore, then we'll be able to, hit the bike trails and take long skates together. One thing my husband does like is golf, and my son actually enjoys going golfing with him because that's father-son time. That's time that they can talk and just relate with each other. So keeping that connection as they grow is going to put us in a good position to listen to them. And when our connection is strong like that, they're going to be more willing to listen to us. Okay, here's another one. Finish this sentence. One way I can spend more time with my child is... So here's an example. One way I can spend more time with my child is going skating with him. Or one way I can spend more time with my child is taking them out to a mother-daughter dinner or going for a walk and leaving the siblings back home with dad. So now it's your chance, your turn. You finish the sentence. One way I can spend more time with my child is... Great, those are all good ideas. Thank you for sharing. Successful parents are parents who can adapt to the changing needs of their children. Successful parents work themselves out of a job. Have you ever heard that a good supervisor doesn't really have to do much of the work? but can sit back and it's like a well-oiled machine. Can sit back and watch the people they supervise, who they're in charge of, actually do the work that they taught them how to do. So no one here is out of the parenting work yet, but with each step you help your child take towards independence, becomes a badge of a badge that says well done, like on page 22. And ultimately, seeing a young adult who knows what it means to be a gift to others and is working on being a gift in all those spice areas is one of the joys of parenting well done. Wouldn't each of us be pleased if our child was described by others as good and virtuous and holy? Now we're going to take a look at some guidelines for how to make the most of session 2 with your child. That's the end of this recording for VIP part 2.